Flatfoots and Fools, a podcast about detective games. I'm Andrew, and I'm joined today by my partner, John. How are you doing today?
I'm doing good. Happy to be back in the saddle and record some games.
Yes, been a little bit, but today we are diving back into the case of the ABC murders. First of the Poirot games. So this one is the first of the Poirot series. It now has 5 entries. It's a bit soft on the series side because it comes from 3 different game studios total. This one was the first. It's from Artifact Studio from 2016. And this caught me by surprise because otherwise this studio mostly works on racing games. So a little bit out of left field.
Yeah, I saw that in your notes. Did you find out the backstory for them?
No, I mean, there's probably a story there, but I didn't find it in the short term. I haven't done actual, proper reporting on it, though, so I don't want to say there is no story here. Just, a casual glance didn't find it.
They did Garfield Kart Furious Racing then 2019, so they did it after ABC Murders.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so this one is also based on a novel directly from Agatha Christie called The ABC Murders. So that makes it unlike First Cases and London Case, because those were original stories by the studio. So this makes it more directly comparable to Murder on the Orient Express in that sense. So, what is this game, John?
It's about murder. And this is sufficiently different than the other ones, too. It was the first of the Agatha Christie games to be licensed, I'm guessing, since it's 2016. But it seems to be about the trains are called ABC, like the ABC booklet or something?
The idea is set in the UK in the 30s. There's something called the ABC Rail Guide, which tells you the schedules to go from anywhere to anywhere with all the different train companies at the time.
This is before smartphones for our younger kids here.
85 years before, I think. 75? Details. But yeah, so this one is a side-facing point-and-click adventure game for at least most of the exploration sections. You have very frequent small-scale deduction challenges for interpreting clues and information. And unlike most of the other games, it uses a cel-shaded art style, so somewhat aesthetically similar to the Telltale games in that art style. And that makes it different than almost all the other entries in the series, which either used a top-down isometric look or a more full 3D environment. And again, in contrast, this one uses just the small-scale deduction challenges as opposed to some larger mind map type of thing.
You can see from the way the other games progress, even though they're made by different studios, you can see where they build off of what the last person did, which is nice. So it's pretty cool to see the evolution of that. But this one, man, some of the cel shaded style, like they have dead eyes problem. It's weird. I kind of wish that they had like JRPGs where they have little paint portraits on the bottom where they would just like speak there instead. But this one's also voice acted.
Yeah, I wish they had done the thing that was it the First Cases did, where the conversation pops up. It gives you like a painted portrait of the person
Yes.
with one expression per text segment. And I wish they had done that.
Yes, that would definitely alleviate the dead eyes problem.
It's an interesting comparison because you've got the different mechanics, a different art style, and it's also unique in that this one completely follows the book story. To the best of my knowledge, it is as close as you could get to a direct interpretation of the book to a game.
So did you know this story ahead of time?
Yes, so I had read this book within 6 months before playing it,
Ah,
as a coincidence. So this game, for me, became less an exercise in can I figure out what is going on and more of a let's see how they chose to interpret this book.
kind of like Murder on the Orient Express.
Yes, but without the additional sections, which I did enjoy going through the game and being like, oh, okay, I think this is a cool way to lay out this part of the game.
We're talking about ABC Murders?
Yeah.
Hmm.
And as much as the little deductions were small and not a giant thinking web, it did kind of accurately portray what was being discussed in the books at the time without going too deep into spoilers. Like you would go to the first murder scene and you see, oh, a woman's been killed, and you start observing clues, and then it would pop up a little prompts and it'd be like, well, the ABC murder book is face down on the table. Why would that be? And it would give you a couple of options, and you sort of got to deduce, what does that mean? And that was parallel to like conversations that would be happening in the book where they would examine the murder scene. And then as they're discussing it afterward, someone would say, oh, yeah, well, this book was down. Maybe it means this. And then Poirot might point out, oh, well, if it meant that, it would have been face up. The fact it is face down probably means something else. And so, like, the game kind of has you, the player, doing that before Poirot enunciates it, which I think overall is cool.
Yeah, it gives you some agency in the game at least.
Mm-hmm. And I assume you didn't know this story before going into it.
Correct. I did not.
All right. So once we hit the spoiler zone, I'll have questions.
So something I wanted to mention about the style. The design for Pearl is sufficiently different than the other versions. Like he's more portly in this one. I think this is the only one where he's constantly wearing a hat. So the design, they make him thinner in the other games, like First Cases and London Case and Orient Express. I'm pretty sure they were going for David Chauchet's style character, a little bit more portly. And was he short?
Definitely.
Hmm.
I mean, he's not like crazy short, but he's definitely not taller than most of the other characters.
Yeah.
Yeah, this one's definitely artistically based on David Suchet, especially with the gray suit and gray bowler hat was something he wore for years or seasons of that show.
I've seen a couple episodes of it.
I just found out this week that it was ITV, not the BBC, that did that show.
What's ITV?
I believe it's some other British channel.
Mm.
And then later, I think the BBC has aired it. So calling it the BBC version is not actually true.
I'm glad I did not say that.
That was on me. Yeah, so mechanically, this one's a bit lighter on the detecting than the other entries in the series. It's got those small deductions. They're very self-contained, and you don't really get into a big case-spanning deduction system until the denouement.
Mm.
But as much as sometimes I wanted more, it did avoid a lot of the pitfalls of really bad, weird logical leaps and trying to connect things together that you're like, why? Looking at you, London Cases. So before we dive into the spoiler zone, is there anything else we want to cover?
I do. I want to know, what did you play this on?
Full PC.
Because my issues with this game were more technical for the first time. Technical as in like machine coding and stuff, which generally that is more your bailiwick than mine.
Yeah, I just played this on the regular desktop, and I don't recall any issues.
Huh. You want to talk about it now, or you want to wait till how I feel about the game?
Let's talk about the technical stuff.
So, first thing I noticed was when you play on PC, I could not set it to Windows mode. So, I couldn't have one screen for the game and then another screen to take notes. This is really nitpicky and it's fine. Like, I just ended up taking notes on my phone instead of the screen, but that was kind of weird. 2016, like, this should have a Windows mode option, at least now, but this was 10 years. Oh, wow, it was 10 years ago. Okay. So there was some like serious pathfinding issues that annoyed me, such as one of the cases where you trying to get to the ginger cat, which we'll talk about later. Like I could not get to it, and like I had to click all over the screen to get him to walk there. So there's like a lot of like little technical things that I did not really experience in other games. By technical, I mean like bugs. So you didn't have that issue?
Not that I recall.
Huh.
It's been a little while since I've played it, and it's hypothetically possible I had it, but it just did not stick in my mind. It's not like Sherlock Holmes' Crimes and Punishments, which those technical issues did stick in my mind. But yeah, I don't recall anything from this one.
Fair enough. It stuck out to me.
That is good to know. Do you know if that was a common issue or?
I didn't look into other people, like other reviews and stuff like that. That's why I wanted to ask you about it. But it was like the only game that we've played that had like small technical issues that annoyed me.
Yeah, that's good to know. I didn't hit that, but that could also be just weird hardware issues as well.
Pathfinding one, that was just screen. But enough of that.
Yeah, if the game overall worked fine, that's good at least. The pathfinding issues, those can add up. Like as we talked about with the London case, that one had a lot of pathfinding issues as well, and that did dampen the enjoyment.
He still doesn't run, which is fine now that I understand it better.
Mm-hmm. Fortunately, I don't think there's a lot of backtracking, like going back and forth, so hopefully it's not too much of a glaring thing. But yeah, say anything else before we dive into the spoilers?
Little things that I noticed in the game that either amused me or made me just wonder. Like the voice acting for the sidekicks are pretty wooden. The way he talks of just like, yes, I understand the Knox list of Agatha Christie murder mysteries, where like one of the rules is the sidekick must always be like kind of dim witted. I get that. The voice acting for Hukira was fine, but the sidekicks, they seem so, so dumb. But
Yeah.
also, he walks around with ready hands. I'm pretty sure that's not what they were like. So, ready hands is a way for bodyguards walking around with their hands on their chest, ready to like fight. And as someone who dabbles in martial arts, like I noticed that, and I just found it amusing because Hukyo Proto is not known for fighting, but he's always ready to throw down, and that was amusing to me.
Yeah. I've definitely seen that pose for David Suchet.
Mm, maybe that's like his thinking pose or the fact that because he wears a vest. But that's just kind of how I interpret it nowadays. I'm pretty sure I'm looking too deep into it, but I was amused.
Actually, two poses I think about him would be almost like the ready hands, but behind his back.
Oh, yeah, that's just like Eddie's and stuff. I mean, his backstory is he was a military man, so that makes sense.
Yeah, like in front, not quite the ready hands perfectly, but like holding your vest. Like those are the two, like in my mind, that's what David Suchet did walking around as Poirot.
Because, like portraits, what do I do with my hands?
Mm-hmm.
But overall, technical wise, other than the technical stuff, the artwork was different enough after playing 4 different Agatha Christie games. It was all right.
Yeah, I enjoyed the artwork when I first played it. It was also the first one I played. So this was my coming in, did this one. I really enjoyed the number of time the question, do they like trains, came up. Because unsurprisingly, in a game about murders surrounding a train guide, the concept of do they like trains becomes relevant.
Yes, yes. Is it someone who just took Amtrak the other day? I like trains and I can understand. But this time there was no murders on the train. I mean, you got Orient Express for that. So
Mm-hmm.
still amusing. All right, let's get into the actual story.
Yeah, well, first we got to go with overall, do we recommend this game? So
Hmm.
I came off this one fairly positively, but it was also the first one of these that I played. So I didn't have any of the other ones to compare it to. And I enjoyed the experience of seeing how the book was brought to life in a game, which is a different experience than how is it as a game going in fresh.
Hmm. I mean, this game is over 10 years old at this point. And like one thing I did like about it is that of the games, like it's the only one where you like people watch. You look at little telltale hints and stuff like that. I do that in my everyday life nowadays. Just trying to pick up clues from little things I can see about people on the subway, on the street, or whatever, just because my life is a video game now. But with that being said, how long did it take you to beat this?
I don't recall right off the top of my head. Let me look up on Steam.
I clocked in at just about 6 hours.
That sounds about right.
Yeah, yours looks like it says 5.8 for you.
Yep. Okay, so 6 hours.
This game, if you can get it in a bundle, if you played the other one, sure, but I wouldn't put it as the top tier of the games that we've played.
It's also not that expensive. The base price is only about $15.
Yeah, I'd wait till it's on sale. It's all right. If somebody gets deeper into the Agatha Christie's novel and want to see it, it's well reviewed and stuff, but I would hold off, honestly. They're just better Agatha Christie games because, again, this was the first one. I get it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, or at least the first one of the modern run. There's some much older stuff.
Yeah.
I think that brings us to the spoiler zone. You have been warned. So, this game, general plot is that you go and investigate a strange murder in a town that starts with A. What was it? Ashbury?
Hmm.
And the lady who's been killed is Angela Ainsley. So, her name is AA in the town of A. She's been killed, and the ABC train guide with that town has been left open on the counter where she's been killed. And initially, you investigate her life, you check the family members, the potential suspects, and nobody else really comes out that good of a suspect. And then you get a letter about a second murder. About is it the day that it happens?
Yeah, within hours, I think. Too late for him to get there.
And this one is Betty Bender in a town that starts with B, another British name.
Yeah. In my notes, I asked myself, I was like, is this some Stan Lee's level stuff when it comes to the naming convention, like Peter Parker, Reed Richards?
I mean, it would be, well, not that much before Stanley. I was going to say a ways before, and then I realized, no, it's almost contemporary. Yeah, so you immediately start to see a theme of, some killer is killing people with 2 repeating letters in that town letter, and you're off to the races. So I, of course, knew all this was coming from reading the book ahead of time, but how did the unfolding of this story work for you in terms of the twist?
So looking at Knox's 10 Commandments of detective fiction, now that I know about it, like I knew there's going to be a twist. So there's some formula to it. And I was really surprised when they showed us the killer. And I was very confused at that. Originally, I thought that broke the formula. And I was happy to see the twist and be surprised of it. The twist being that while there is a killer, there's actually a mastermind behind the killer. I really enjoyed that, even though I kind of knew some things were coming. And in my notes, I also wrote a lot of this is some Scooby Doo level stuff of just shenanigans.
Yeah. And they start this thing going, you get the A's, the B's, you get the C murder, and then you start to get the perspective of Custis. What was his middle name?
I have to look it up.
First name starts with A, his middle name starts with a B, and his last name is Custis. And so he's being set up as the murderer. And initially, he looks like a suspect who's been in all three locations at the right time. There's some other suspicious things about him, and he's being set up as the murderer, but there's details that don't really work that well. And so after the third murder, you eventually get a letter talking about the murder that's going to happen in D, Doncaster. And you race there to prevent the murder. And at this point, the link between Custis and the other three murders is starting to be known. So he is apprehended in Doncaster. And it looks like, okay, you've got your suspects. Everything seems good. And then you interview Custis. And it becomes very clear that he is not a good fit for these murders. And that's where the small deduction system works really well, because it'll be like, you observe a behavior. What does this behavior mean? And then how does it conflict with what you've observed from the other three murders? For example, like the other three murders were very well planned, whereas Custis is not a guy who likes to think for himself, self admitted. And so you end up with a conclusion of somebody seems to have framed Custis for these murders, and you need to figure out who. I'm not gonna say you need to figure it out, but honestly, the game sort of leads you down the line. Like, you need to do the deductions properly, but if you didn't figure it out before the denouement, just solving each individual little deduction would lead you to the correct answer.
Yeah, you're not going to get it wrong.
Yeah. And so the twist becomes this is not really a serial murder. Instead, one of the other three murders was the desired murder, and the other two were a smokescreen in order to hide the actual person who has a motive to kill the intended victim.
It's still a serial murderer. It's just not for the same reasons that you are led to believe. Like serial murder is three people or more.
Yeah, it's not serially motivated.
Well, not themed. It's not theme motivated.
Yeah, the motivation is a specific one, and the others are just collateral damage, as opposed to all of these three people are equally valuable in the chain of kills.
That's so much effort just to have like such an elaborate theme for murders and stuff.
Yeah, it is very an elaborate setup.
It's Stanley level stuff. Alice, Asher, Betty Barnard, Carmichael Clark. Yeah, it's fiction. I get it, but still, just imagine somebody to go through all that. Like, yeah, I can see someone's OCD doing this. Both things could be true. No, all these people died just so he can kill one specific person. Lots of red herrings.
Mhm. And so eventually you figure out it's the brother of victim number 3.
Hmm.
And he was killing the guy for the inheritance, I think.
Real basic reason.
Hmm. But went through all of this set dressing.
Hey, man, you got to admit, he worked for that inheritance. He killed two other people. He framed somebody else. That's a lot of effort for a hustle.
Pretty solid framing, too. Like, if you weren't digging too deep, it would be quite easy to peg this guy for all 3. In the denouement, you redescribe the murderer's traits, talk about why Custis is a bad fit for that, and then determine the person who is actually a good fit.
The accumulation of all the little clues, which leads to the brother.
Had you figured that out before it's revealed in the denouement?
Yes, if I remember correctly, I think what tipped me off was the nurse. Like when you meet the nurse or going through the safe and stuff in the cancer lady's house. That's a little bit more than halfway in.
Maybe 2/3 ish.
I like a lot of the little set dressing pieces about his travels around the world because it amused me to see like Hong Kong referenced during this time and everything. So like little things that I know and understand that kind of tipped me off that something's not right. Also, when I started realizing like, oh wait, there's gonna be a twist. Let me start figuring this out so I don't look like a dum dum.
Yeah, I couldn't have that experience from knowing the story ahead of time. And it was very fun to watch it go. Like they added I think a little tiny bit of stuff around the mansion. I don't recall from the novel, but otherwise it was again very faithful to the novel,
Hmm.
which I generally like. I tend to prefer the adaptations generally not take too crazy of liberties with the specific stories of source materials. Like it's different if it's in the world of, then, knock yourself out. But if you're doing the ABC murders, I usually want it to be as similar as reasonable to the ABC murders. Yeah, I'm glad that at least the story still works generally for people who haven't read it before. 'Cause that's sort of the arc of the book as well. Of you're starting to hear about these murders. It sets up Custis as a killer, and then there's the finale of catching him. But even already there's doubts, like something doesn't seem right. And then you go back and reevaluate and realize, no, this is a setup.
Yeah. When you get to the third murder, like yeah, you realize like, hey, there's more going on. Partially just mechanic wise, like they're giving you more and more hints, more and more clues. Someone's got to be the murderer.
I probably ended up a bit more positive on this game than you, but that's sort of like, again, it was a different experience.
Yeah, like it's not a bad game. They're just better games. It's 10 years old.
Hmm.
It's just got better games nowadays. But if you're interested from the basics of like ABC murders, like yeah, go for it. I like a lot of the little attention to details in the background. In the first murder, there's some rats running around. Second murder, there's some crabs. Then I forgot what was running around in the background. So it was a lively environment, despite what I said earlier about the controls issues.
And then, sort of timeline wise, this predates Obra Dinn. So there weren't a lot of games out there before this with heavy deduction webs or things like that. There's Detective Grimoire. Her story had just released right when this came out. And then the Sherlock Holmes series, which we'll get to, had just released Crime and Punishments, which had a bit of a deduction web. We'll cover that game there. So it was playing in that space, but there wasn't a lot of other stuff out there to take inspiration from yet. Yeah. Any final thoughts before we wrap this one up?
Did you put in blanks in the gun?
I think so.
Yeah, I also put in blanks. Maybe I might take a look at something later to see what happens when you put bullets in it. One of the things I noticed in the game that I'm not sure how I feel about it, like you get ego points for looking at mirrors. I mean, I've seen his personality interpreted by other studios and stuff. Like, how arrogant is Hercule? I mean, he does refer to himself as like the world's greatest detective kind of deal.
Yeah, I'd say just from the books, it varies a little bit depending on which story, but there's a little dash of arrogance in there.
Also, I noticed in my notes that he referenced Sherlock Holmes at the end of part one, and I was amused at that.
Yes.
So Sherlock Holmes is in that universe.
Yeah, because I mean, like it or not, the Sherlock Holmes stories were a major stepping stone to the Golden Age mysteries. It's not one of them itself, but that's something every story, probably every author who wrote detective stories, they probably read that growing up.
Hmm.
Like that would have been a real big formative experience. And kind of the idea of solving crimes through thorough investigation and logic. To the best of my knowledge, that was one of the first things that really put a lot of emphasis on that. But yeah, I'd say overall, we're mildly positive on the game.
Yeah, it's all right.
Yeah.
Get it on sale though.
And it'll be on sale pretty frequently, what with it being 10 years old. Probably every seasonal sale plus a few others.
Agreed.
So yeah. What else have you been playing lately?
I finally finished Disco Elysium. We'll be recording that soon. Probably my next game is Tangle Tower, as well as fighting through Phoenix Wright, the last of the original trilogy. So I'm looking forward to that. And I'm trying to figure out what other games do I want to do to stay ahead of our workflow. And other games in that, still Helldivers 2. But looking at my game list, I've noticed that one of the games that I very much enjoyed is no longer available. I did not know that.
Ooh, which one?
Battlestar Galactica Deadlock. Yeah, apparently last November they delisted it, and it was one of the few games that I wanted to 100%. Apparently, I got like 100 hours in that game.
I had no idea they delisted it.
Yeah, it was a really good space combat game where like you set up your turn and an opponent set up their turn, and then you hit play and it'll play out that turn, and you can't change anything from that turn. It also had one of the best cinematic modes where at the end of the mission you can just watch your battle, and it was really good cinematically as if you were watching the Battlestar Galactica remake. like Viper pilots shooting things down. Like it was just really good for its time. Really sad that it's delisted.
Aw. Yeah, it's sad because there was an RTS game I enjoyed called R.U.S.E that
Hmm.
after about 10 years was also delisted. We dug in and it turns out it had to do with licensing issues.
That's probably what happened here.
And it was extra weird because R.U.S.E was like a World War II RTS, but apparently some of the military hardware has licensing issues. I find that obnoxious that historical military equipment can have licensing and image stuff. I'm like, bruh, this is now a part of history. Like, I think that company shouldn't have the ability to require licensing on historical military hardware.
Raytheon stock gotta go up, bro.
Yeah, I don't know who it is. It might be Boeing at this point.
One of the defense contractors, yeah.
I mean, it might not even be an American company for all I know. It might be a foreign company thing.
Yeah, I always figured it's the American military industrial complex.
Yeah, and American copyright is generally the most stringent. Thanks, Disney.
Thanks, Sonny Bono.
Mm-hmm. So recently, I just played through The Posthumous Investigation, which is a Brazilian time loop detective adventure.
What was the name of that again?
The Posthumous Investigation. The idea is you're a detective. You wake up in the morning with a letter delivered saying, "Please investigate my death, Bras Cubas," who is a rich industrialist. And it's set in 1930s Rio de Janeiro. It's like side on. Time is ticking, characters are moving around according to a schedule, and you start investigating. You find clues, you ask people about them. The day runs out, and you get pulled into limbo and interviewed by Bras Cubas, who starts asking you about your investigation. And then when you're done discussing things with him, you go through the door and you wake up at the beginning of the same day again. But all of the information aspects of the clues you found, you keep.
Hmm.
And anything you talk to people about, you remember. You don't keep any items you've picked up, but it then allows you to pursue other avenues that day. And I'm having a lot of fun with it. It got a little bit dragging at the end when a specific guy was only available like from 8 to 10. So you had to kind of almost like fast forward through a day, talk to him for 2 hours, end the day, repeat several times to ask him about all the stuff. But yeah, I had fun with it overall. It's been my detective game. In terms of non-detective stuff, I've been playing a lot of Slay the Spire 2 with my wife.
Oh, I know the 2-player game.
It apparently goes up to 4.
Huh. But I gotta double down on my detective games to stay ahead.
Yeah, so that's what we've been up to.
Yeah, if you join our Discord or whatever, we have our socials, feel free to shout out what you want us to do. Because I'm tired of just scrolling endlessly through my Steam library going, what game should I play next? It's like Netflix. What do I want to play?
Yeah, so you can find us on Blue Sky at Flatfoots and Fools, one word. Our Discord link will be in the show notes, so if you want to pop on and talk about any kind of detective games, we're there.
Logic puzzles and stuff, yeah.
Yeah. Podcast is edited by Peter Crevier. Podcast art is by Lolita Gross, and music is by Antonic Music. Have a great night, everyone.